All right. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Jason Demakis coming at you live via the power of consciousness and my internet connection for week 3 of Concepts of Consciousness. And this week we're going to be discussing focus and willpower. So as usual, I just want to take a quick moment or two to thank my affiliates, the Universal Beat Clothing, for hooking it up as always, and expandedconsciousness.com for supporting the mission and the reinforcement of spreading concepts of consciousness to the masses. So as usual, how this is going to work is I'm just going to speak for a few moments on a few key concepts regarding consciousness and the nature of our experiences, and then we can discuss it as a group, open it up, kind of break it down, make observations, discuss it among ourselves, that sort of thing. And then we'll open the Q&A section where whomever is logged into Google Hangouts and watching this chat now or just happens to wander in can join and do so and join in the chat. So without further ado, we'll get started. Today, I just wanted to start things off with an excerpt from a website called mindreality.com. The gentleman is a very prolific writer, and he kind of had a few key words that caught my attention earlier that I wanted to share with you. But the headline of the piece is called "The Secret of Success is Focus and Perseverance." And he goes on to say, "The secret of success is focus. It is the one secret that ties everything together. According to the law of attraction, what you focus on is what you get. Therefore, when you focus on all of the qualities of success, you attract them to yourself. The more you do actions that lead to success, the more success you'll experience. The success of anything you do begins with focus. That's when you call your powers together for accomplishment of anything you undertake. Focus is an act of the will, which is the faculty that rules everything." Then he goes on to say, "The lack of focus is the reason for failure. When you are procrastinating, hesitating, dragging, and stopping, it's because you are focusing on the stuff that takes your focus away from the stuff that contributes to your work. Focusing on the problems causes a lack of focus on the solution. Focusing on the negative causes lack of focus on the positives. Focusing on other things causes lack of focus on the primary thing. Therefore, if you want to achieve maximum and fastest results, keep your eye on the ball." And to me, that was a very profound statement because it kind of ties together a little bit of everything, regardless of where you're coming from, whether you're, into conscious experimental growth or personal development or anything like that, starting a career, relationships, dieting, anything goal-oriented. It's going to depend heavily on your ability to focus on your goal and take the actions necessary to bring it to fruition. I really like those words that he said there. I'm going to include the link at the bottom of this video because I know some people are going to want to check that out. But that's pretty much all I really wanted to say today because we have 3 awesome guests who are returning from last week. We have Jamie, Roman, and Terrence who are standing by, and I want to actually open the Q&A section a little earlier this week because we got kind of a late start. So we will have those 3 unmute their microphones whenever they are ready, and we will get the ball rolling here. How you guys doing this week?
Good.
All right.
Oh, awesome. And yourself, sir?
I'm doing fantastic as always, man. Sounds like we're all here. Everyone's good. Sound is good.
So.
Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. I just wanted to say, from last week, I started another 30-day challenge.
Excellent.
Do the 10 breath exercise every day, and also to write in the thing that I was calling the morning pages, the stream of consciousness. So I've been doing that every day since our last webinar, and it's been pretty awesome. Kind of like gets my day started right.
That's awesome. The journaling thing is really good. I'm sure you've noticed quite a bit of positive momentum early in the day when you do that, especially when you combine it with the breathing. I've noticed anyway when I do the breathing exercises and then I get started with something creative, it's just like the momentum of the day, flow seems to be so much more smooth and less chaotic. think Roman kept a journal of some sort, didn't he? He was really going on about the momentum journal last week.
Thanks for tying me in there. Um, yeah, I did journaling, but then like I forget about it often, like to do it when it's just a book. So when I saw on High Existence there was this application called a 5 minute journal, and I started doing that, and that kept me engaged for a longer period of time. I think I did that for 3 months or something, and then I really got some momentum going, and I still have that positive focus. So I can
Yeah,
recommend like
Roman.
having something on your app on your phone.
I wanted
Yes.
to thank you also from last week when I rewatched our thing, and you're just so positive. Like you really made me feel good, and like I felt inspired because you were just bringing all this positivity. It was really cool.
Thank you. Well, you cannot, as Jesse says, you cannot uplift someone without going along for the ride.
Very well said, my friend.
Right. So, I mean, when you feel good yourself, it's easy to uplift others and to be, how do you say that, like positive most of
Definitely.
the time. Like
Positivity
I'm,
is definitely contagious, for sure.
yeah. And yeah, it becomes easier to maintain if you do it for longer periods of time. Like for the last 3 months, I haven't been down, I don't think a single day. Like sometimes I feel it, you become very conscious of it. Because then when you feel it coming, then you're much more aware of it. So um, like when I experience a little bit of going down, like I feel like okay, this is not where I want to be, then I know some techniques that can like push me in the other direction again and like get me feeling well.
Can you share those?
Good again. Huh?
Can you share those?
Can I tell like what techniques they are?
Yeah, so it's like if you feel it coming, because that's happened to me before, and I'm like, oh no, this isn't supposed to happen. So then,
Right. Usually when I feel down or like I feel it coming, like it's I don't or I notice that I'm like a little flustered, not flustered, frazzled. There we go. Um, I I use like I notice that I'm sitting like usually I'm sitting or hanging somewhere, and then I notice like okay, I'm not feeling as good as I want to be feeling. And that's the first step, like awareness. And then what I do is I use the reverse link of emotion and behavior. So what I do is I put my body in motion, and then my mood follows that. I also wrote a blog post about that, like 50 ways to get out of a funk. So there's like all kinds of techniques that can boost morale and happiness levels. And so yeah, what I do, I jump around or I just get moving or like even just I notice that just walking up and down the stairs, like when I walk up and down the stairs here more, I feel better than like versus just sitting here up behind my computer all day, for example. So yeah, I'll send it's romankorver.com. So I would like to give you back the
No worries, man. That was very insightful. Yeah, Roman's site is excellent. Before I even, well, I haven't actually met him in person yet. Before we Skyped, and I only heard his voice, I checked out his site, and I was really impressed. And this is before I knew who anyone else was. I met all these people through Jack, who hopefully I can get in here sometime. He's at Burning Man though right now, living it up. Um, but yeah, Roman's site is excellent. He's got some good stuff on there. Very bright pages, tons of content to keep you busy and all that. We'll definitely stick that link at the
I'm
bottom.
aiming for a new post tomorrow, but like yeah, working on that, as you well know. Yeah, I actually saw on regarding Burning Man, I saw like there's a live video feed, so you can watch Burning Man like being built up now.
Oh yeah, they have that live streaming video of the whole
Yeah,
event going down. which is awesome. Good stuff. But yeah, before the chat, we were kind of touching base on the Joseph Murphy book, Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Terrence brought that up. He said he picked it up recently, and it was doing him quite a bit of good. I guess he's only read a little bit because he wanted to pace himself, but I was hoping we could kind of discuss that that book, and maybe if Terrence wanted to kind of to bring up some insights that he had or questions that he had or things that were kind of inspiring to him, maybe we can bring it into discussion and others can grab from it.
Yeah, again, Jason, thanks for recommending this book. It's very, I think I bought it like a month ago, and I just got around to reading it, and I started reading it Friday, and what it talks about is it talks about the use of, he said it's different from, scientific prayer is different from supposedly religious prayer, and they said that you are using both your conscious and your subconscious mind to, I guess I want to say manifest whatever it is that you're praying for, or that it's kind of like the law of attraction, actually, and it talks a lot about healing and like bypassing your conscious mind and ingraining, having belief in your subconscious, and your subconscious manifest whatever it is that you, I guess I want to say the healing. Well, the healing in the book, like a lot of people had afflictions, and they were healed by their subconscious mind, so to speak. So, and I've been trying to like overcome like somewhat limiting beliefs as well. So, but I like the way it's almost like an affirmation almost. So it's almost like about the use of like affirmations, like, and it talks about how your subconscious is more impressionable. It's impressionable by your I guess your outer experience or your conscious mind. So it's very interesting.
Definitely. I'm glad you said that because I felt the same way about the book. I read it a couple times actually. The last time I read all the way through it in one, like, instead of reading like a chapter here, then taking a month off, and then reading half of it, and then this, and then breaking it down. I think last summer I really sat down and read it from beginning to end over the course of about a week, and I took some notes on it that I was kind of correlating with other things that I was studying, and it does line up quite well, and it's very interesting to see how impressionable the subconscious mind is. I know that Jamie could probably back this up because she was a psychology major, but I'll always bring it back to marketing only because that's something that everyone can relate to. Repetition, repeated images, repeated phrases, all of those things become ingrained in your subconscious, and you're not necessarily aware of them, but they will guide your behavior like very subtly. Like when you see certain colors, you'll get hungry, or when you hear certain noises, you'll have certain memories, or certain smells, tastes trigger different states. So it's definitely a good read for anyone that hasn't checked it out yet. And I like what you said about the affirmations, because that to me is always one of those like new agey terms that's misunderstood and gets misapplied and misused and abused. But when I think of affirmations, I kind of think of ways of kind of what you were getting at, like reprogramming your subconscious to be more receptive to the types of experiences you want, because there's a lot going on in the background that you're not necessarily aware of because they're subconscious. They're like the primary secondary relationship, and it guides your behavior. So it's very unique way of reprogramming yourself. And ultimately, I think what a lot of personal development is, whether it's upfront about it or not, or is even aware of it or not, is really just subconscious reprogramming. That when you get to it, because ultimately that's what's changing your interaction with the external world, is how you reuse and recycle the internal and then express it outwards in new ways and become receptive to things you weren't necessarily as open to before. And to me, that's very interesting, and that's kind of what I got out of that book. And I'm glad to hear that someone else who is striving towards that path is kind of seeing it in that way too, because it reaffirms my own intuitions of that information. But yeah, awesome stuff, man.
I found interesting too. I want to read one of the affirmations. Oh, well, one of the prayers. He said that I think it was a guy. He had some type of illness, and if I can find it, I highlighted it here. Let me find it real quick. But I found it interesting. Like he said, he put himself in almost in a, I don't want to say it's a hypnotic state, but it's like he put himself in like a hypnotic state. He talked down his conscious mind, and allowed things to ingrain in his subconscious. And let me see if I can find it right. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, well, I'll use another one. And this is a lady, how she restored her memory. She was losing her memory, and what she decided to do was she gave herself some positive auto suggestions every day, and it went like this. She said, "From today onward, my memory is improving in every way. I will always remember whatever I need to know at every moment of the time and point of space. The impressions I receive will be clear and definite. I will retain them automatically and easily. Whatever I want to recall will immediately present itself in correct form in my mind. I am improving rapidly every day. Very soon my memory will be better than it has ever been before." At the end of 3 weeks, her memory was back to normal. So it's like, you kind of, reaffirming, every day, just a positive suggestion. I call it neuro-linguistic programming, so to speak, something like that. So I found that interesting.
Definitely, definitely. I like the use of neurolinguistics, like you said, because that is very a modern scientific term for what I think is actually going on. It's kind of like that neuroplasticity, neurolinguistic, where you're literally, if your brain was a computer, you're reprogramming it with new software, and you're teaching it to run on new things. I don't know, what's that, there's a commercial on, it's like brain something, where it's like the woman talking about like playing games, but it's not games, it like rewires your brain. It's pretty cool, it's becoming popular. I forget the name of it, it's like brain something. But it's kind of cool to see that becoming more mainstream, because I think that's what the subconscious information is based off of ultimately. I think we're just getting around to unveiling the science of that. And the memory one is good. I remember the one about the guy having some some sort of infection or something like that, or something about like a limb or something, and becoming healed, or something or other. It's very interesting how we relate subconsciously to concepts like wealth or health, like an inner and outer type experience, or of a similar concept of, an abundance of something or a lack of something. Luminosity, that's what it is. Thank you.
Well, luminosity, yeah, I used to, I do that quite often actually. It's kind of fun. It's actually fun.
So it is good. I'll have to check that out. I see the commercials for it all the time, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of surprising that this is like on TV. Yeah.
Oh, actually, I found it right here. The one when the guy, he was trying to come back to his perfect health. Let me see. You want me to read the passage, a small part of the passage right here?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. This is how to convey the idea of perfect health to your subconscious mind. A Methodist minister I met at Johannesburg, South Africa, told me how he overcame an advanced case of lung cancer. He used a method to convey the idea of perfect health to his subconscious mind. At my request, he sent me a detailed description of the process, which now I pass on to you. Several times a day, I would make a certain that I was completely relaxed mentally and physically. I relax my body by speaking to it as it follows. My feet are relaxed, my ankles are relaxed, my legs are relaxed, my abdominal muscles are relaxed, my heart and lungs are relaxed, my head is relaxed, my whole being is completely relaxed. After about 5 minutes, I found myself drifting into a sleepy, drowsy state. Then I affirmed the following truth. The perfection of God is now expressed through me. The idea of perfect health is now fulfilling my subconscious mind. The image of God has of me is a perfect image, and my subconscious mind recreates my body in perfect accordance with the perfect image held in the mind of God. So I found that interesting.
So I want to ask each of you individually to speak on this question. To you, from what we've discussed so far on the subconscious mind, how does that make you feel about your responsibility as an individual ultimately? If what this information is saying is true, and we do have the ability to do like marvelous things like heal ourselves using our minds, or rearrange circumstances, how does that make you feel as an individual? Does it kind of make you feel like you have too much responsibility, like it's overwhelming, you have so much control? And does that kind of scare you in a way, or is it something where you just want to say bullshit, like I don't believe in that? I'm interested. Let's start with Jamie on that one.
I'd say A. Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. It's exciting because I don't know, it's empowering and all that, but at the same time, it's like, oh crap, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. So I have to learn how to do all that. And but I mean, I'm ready for it, you know. I'm researching, and ever since I found out that I do have more power than I thought, I was like, okay, my life goal is to I don't even know the word for it, to just live that, to like embody that power, I guess, and make my life exactly how I want it, and blah blah blah. And then also, as far as all this stuff, I also feel a responsibility. Like I'm so conscious about this stuff that when people around me are complaining and stuff like that, I get really pissed off because I'm like, I wish that they just knew all this stuff that I know. But I mean, I tried explaining this stuff to my mom, but there's just so much information, and I just find it hard to relay all this to her, and she's just like, meh. And it's like I want to get through to her, but I don't really know how to make it easy to access for her.
It was very well said. I like what you said there about being ready for it. I think that's important too, because a lot of the information, if you don't have the book, or if you have a chance to like check out the PDF, it pretty much explains to you that all of these things are running almost on autopilot anyway, so you might as well start becoming aware of them, because like they're already affecting your life. And to me, that was one of the biggest turning points for me that made me want to get like really serious about meditation. Not like neurotic about it, because I won't lie, I used to get like almost counterproductive with it, because I'd be so obsessed with being like, okay, well, I can't think this way or else this will happen. And just by doing that, you're programming your brain. It's already like you're hitting the gas and the brake at the same time. You're just burning yourself out. So you have to definitely get used to that, like that flow of understanding what your thoughts are going this way, and then kind of like Roman was saying, like redirecting yourself when you get knocked off path, recentering, and then it's definitely like it's like ballet, as stupid as that sounds. It's a very like gentle back and forth kind of like stream balance. I can see Roman smirking over there. Do you have something to say, Roman? What do you think about the first question, if you even remember what I said about being overwhelmed by that information, or do you find it empowering, or does it not seem right to you?
I think it's more empowering than overwhelming, because actually you can relax about it. This is what I wanted to write down. But I think you can relax about it. It's not like you have to stop speaking all of a sudden because every word you say will be like a bomb in the world or something. But I think you can relax about it because the thoughts and the words you've been using have yielded the results that you have now. So if you upgrade those, then it can only get better. It's not like by becoming more conscious of it, it means you cannot really go wrong here. And as long as about both autosuggestion and so affirmations, and just having thoughts and those thoughts and words having effect on the world, and owning your responsibility to say good things and empowering things also for others. I think as long as it feels good, you're on the right path. Because I think when you don't feel good about what you say, it means like that your subconscious is not on track with it yet. So like it's not aligned with it in that way. Because if you say to yourself, I'm completely healthy and super fit, while actually you're a couch potato, right? So it will create some cognitive dissonance, and it won't work. You have to build it up with truths, telling truths that are still true for you, but that are still empowering. Like for example, I'm becoming more and more aware of my thoughts every day. For example, if you're a very like a couch potato, right? And then like later on, you can say like, okay, I'm becoming this and that. I'm becoming fitter and fitter every day, right? For example, and that will repeating those things will empower you to take action on that. Because if you just leave it at talking, it will become untrue. You have to like take little actions, even if they're little, and align your actions with your feelings, with your thoughts, and with your words. So, and there was something else I wanted to talk about. I think it was something Jamie said. Well, continue. I think it might come back very soon.
It'll pop back in when
Yeah.
when we're talking about something else. But yeah, I agree with what you said as well. I liked how you phrased that. It kind of gets back to that trinity of like thought, emotion, action type thing, where ultimately it is your actions that change things, but it's also important to get yourself on a level where your thoughts and your emotions are congruent, so you're not just telling yourself one thing and then doing another. Kind of like that huge discussion we had about, going back to the example Terrence and I beat into the ground about crossing the street with the Mack truck coming at you. You can tell yourself all you want that you're safe and sound and all that, but the actual external reality of the situation is very different. So becoming congruent with that is what's going to make the difference. With it's a very basic example, but like you said, becoming fit, that's ultimately a result of doing like physical effort, whether it's exercise or dieting. But there's a lot of it is internal resistance on your end of becoming congruent with that reality of being able to take those actions. And a lot of that is the internal self-talk of like, I can do this, or like I see myself becoming more fit. The affirmations, the subconscious reprogramming to get your mind on the same level, and empowering yourself basically with your own thinking so that you can like prime yourself for taking those actions, that type of thing.
Exactly. And I think about the Mack truck thing, like it's not about like the Mack truck or like the situation being dramatic. It's about seeing what's not dramatic or what's positive about that situation. Like seeing, not saying that, like not being an ignorer of your surroundings, not being ignorant or like completely disregard what's happening. But it's about being more aware and having a positive focus, like seeing the positive aspects of everything, like the bright side of everything, right? In the situation, like for example, wow, that Mack truck really has a nice grill. For example,
it's a nice sunny day today.
No, I'm
you're
just
right though. You're
exaggerating. Or like seeing, okay, I can also step one step back and I won't be hit, for example, and that's beautiful. Right? So it's it's about that focus, because the positive aspects are always there, because everything's neutral, and if we choose to make something ugly or bad, then there's always a counterpart of that which is good. So you can always choose to focus on the good. And so, in Jamie, I wanted to talk about like criticism, because oftentimes we hear like you first see a problem in someone else, right, before seeing that you do it yourself. It's a very common thing, right? For example, if you see someone complain, you're very like, okay, yeah, personal bias, right? And if you see someone complain, it's much more obvious than if you do it yourself, for example. So the trick here is to maintain the positive focus. This is only something I discovered recently about myself, and I noticed more and more, because I was like looking at my mother, and I was like, hey, you're so negative. And what am I doing there, right? What am I doing there? I'm looking at a situation and I'm choosing to see the negative. I'm choosing to see that she is doing negative stuff. And although that's a good realization, if I continually focus on that, I am falling in the same trap. I'm trapping myself. I have a negative focus too. Not 100% of her communication is negative. It's just not. I'm just choosing to be irritated by what is negative in her speech, because I want to be positive, right? I don't want that stuff. So you cannot focus on something and not want it. You have to filter it out of your vision not by focusing on it and acting on it like focusing on it more. You have to like focus on what you like about the situation, and actually what that really helps. That helps much more, and that also helps other people to twist, like to help to shift really from one mindset to another, because especially women, what I noticed that you can switch it, like shift a conversation very easily when you just like shift yourself, right? You have to shift from negative focus to positive focus, like what's bad about something and what's good about this, or oh, there's another topic that's really good, that's really positive. So what I do is just I make sure I just whenever I just hear something negative, like some complaints, I just automatically switch to something like imperceptibly or less imperceptibly. I try to turn a conversation into something positive. And it works much better than saying, "Hey, mom, can you stop complaining? You're complaining all the time." What will that do? That you don't want to go there.
Hey, Mom, look how nice the grill on that Mack truck looks today.
Right? So
Very
that's
well said,
my
man.
2 cents on that.
What you just said, it just reminded me of a random something that we before this broadcast went live. We were kind of discussing some like ins and outs of religion and whatnot, but I don't want to go too deep into that. But the example that Roman was just using about finding the positive reminds me of some first like just random memory I had from when I was younger at like Sunday school. Some biblical verse, I don't know what it is. Someone will probably comment and tell me exactly where it is. But it was something about like Jesus and a bunch of people walking somewhere, and they came across a dead horse on the side of the road, and they were all commenting on like, oh, the flesh is rotting. Look at the maggots crawling out of it. Like the flesh is peeling off of it. It's been there for days. And Jesus was just like, but the teeth are so nice and white and pearly. And like he just took the positive, so much negative in the situation. And not that I ascribe to any particular religion, but that just in my head reminded me of that, of just like he focused on the good part and like brought everything back to like the positivity, which I thought was really cool. And that's what Roman reminded me of that when he was talking about trying to shift it back to the positive. But let's check in with Terrence, man. How do you feel about the initial question there? Or do you feel overwhelmed by the power of your subconscious mind, or do you feel like it's kind of like empowering and liberating, and you have more control and freedom because of that? What are your 2 cents on that?
I actually feel quite empowered by that, and I want to ask all you guys a question. Okay, since if this information is somewhat true, then if we all raise our collective consciousness and all use our subconscious mind, can we change the state of the world? Our overall reality, can we change? What do you think about that?
That is an awesome question, and that is something that comes up a lot in the literature that I frequent. I think that the concept of like the collective conscious and like the whole like vibe of humanity, I definitely think that there's almost like an average, if you will, of like the energies on the planet all moving or keeping things in a certain way and like manifesting certain things repeatedly. I would like to think in theory that if we could get a lot of people to do so and like raise that collective conscious, I would like to think that things would change quite drastically. But that's doing so is another thing. Hopefully, sessions like this kind of proactively work towards helping raise like a part of that for people, helping more people become aware of these types of things. So I definitely think that in the long run, definitely it will. It's just a matter of people being willing themselves to change, and I think that's the most difficult part, because if the subconscious mind is so powerful, until you know about it, like if you read the book, you're kind of like at the whim of your habits and all that. But that's my 2 cents. Someone else can jump in.
I kind of feel like leading by example is really important, though, in this kind of thing, because trying to tell someone what to do will make them want to resist. So one thing that I've noticed for sure is when I see someone acting a certain way or doing a certain thing, that tends to be really inspiring for me, where if they are trying to tell me to change my ways and this is what I should be doing, then I just want to rebel. So that, I mean, that goes for, oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. Okay, I'll just type it.
What I was about to say, I was like, oh well, you said getting everybody to do that. That would be difficult. I mean, a lot of people are negative Nancy's, so to speak. So I mean, it is tough to get everybody on the same wavelength, so to speak. So I think that would be quite difficult. But I'm talking about if we actually could like get on the same wavelength and like collectively like get out all our subconscious link to the same outcome, then that would be awesome. But I don't know, that'd be quite difficult. But
It's funny that we're already doubting it. We're already putting that vibe out there. We're already like, oh, like, no, yeah, no, yeah, no, no way.
Wouldn't
It's
that be
funny how that
boring
works.
too? Actually,
Like, I
think
don't know.
about it. I don't even know if I want that.
I want that.
Yeah.
it's interesting though.
It's wicked
What would the
interesting.
world be like if everyone were to be meditating every day and like being all zen, and that would be kind of boring, right?
I guess it could be to an extent. I guess it's kind of like there has to be that contrast in order to have that like direction to move towards positivity. Because I don't know, it'd almost be like, do you think that if everyone was positive, then like everyone born after a certain generation would just kind of be like born into like a sterile type world, and like you wouldn't really appreciate the positivity as much because it would be common, or is that kind of going too far off? Like, is that too much of like a
Oh, probably not.
supposition or an assumption? Like, or would it be the totally opposite? Like everything is all loving and love and light, and everything is good. Everyone's abundant. Everyone's got money, time, energy, health, and it's just like paradise on earth. Or would it just be like, is what we have right now like a paradise compared to 1,000 years ago, where you'd have to, you barely had electricity. I mean, there was no electricity, obviously, but you had to go hunt for food, do this, do that, and all these other things just to survive every day. And then here we are on a computer talking to each other, saying, like this, and this, when it's really just relative. So I don't know. It's kind of like a deep question.
Yeah, this all comes down to good and bad, doesn't it?
Good and bad, yin and yang.
Because if everything were to be all like flowery and all happy and good, then there's no contrast anymore. But one thing I thought is like we can contrast it with our past, and we could say like, but before it was really bad, and then we can like build on that, and then just contrast it with the past, and then just say like, okay, well, I don't know. I think this is from this idea, and a guy that really goes deep into this is Neil Donald Walsh with Christian Conversations with God. 1, 2, and 3 is a trilogy.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of that. I think someone in High Existence mentioned it, but I never got around to reading it.
Yeah, I think the founder did.
Yeah, it was either Jordan or Martin or one of those guys.
Uh-huh.
They were kind of like harping on that, and I never got around to checking it out. But they said it was like a really life-changing. Yeah.
Yeah, it has some really good ideas in it, and it really makes you think, and really makes you question your current worldview.
Mm-hmm.
So it has some really nice ideas. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, so we'll shift away from that for a moment. We can come back to it if anyone has is feeling the inclination to. There's 2 more things I want to get to before we call it for the day. We will go to earlier. I want to go back because Jamie was touching on something that I wanted to talk about because I have some experience with it. In regards to kind of still feeling like anxiety or like negativity, even though you're doing these action steps to kind of alleviate those things. Did you want to maybe share a little bit about that so we have some context, if you don't mind, and we can go into it?
Yeah, so like when I'm writing in my journal for this past week, I'm really excited because I'm doing what I wanted to be doing. I'm like accomplishing something. And then it's stream of consciousness. I'm just writing whatever comes to mind. So I'm writing about the stuff for my day or the stuff that I'm thinking about. And I find that I still seem to be worrying about my future, and I'm like getting this anxiety. So then I'm writing, okay, I still feel anxiety, and that's frustrating for me. So it's like I'm frustrated because I know the power that I have, but I haven't really formed the new correct habits yet, and mostly because I can't form the habit yet if I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing in that fresh new moment. It's like I get the concept that in each new moment I'm a new person, and habit is a choice. So I get that I have that choice, but I don't really know what the right choice would be, and that causes me anxiety. And then Oh, and then I was also just saying, like, I was writing on the sidebar how this stuff is so interesting to me, and I want to be a master already, but I feel like I'm still just this young student, and I'm like, I don't know.
Okay, so I get what you're saying there. How long? You said you've been doing the journaling and the meditating for like a week since last week, right? That's right. Yeah. I do know, not to downplay it at all, but it does take like I think it's on average is it 21 to 28 days for new habits to start having an effect, and like right now is literally the hardest part because you're working against that momentum you already had going before. You're trying to get this new wheel spinning in a different direction, and you're kind of like still cruising on that old momentum while trying to start this new momentum for yourself. So you're still going to be kind of feeling that like internal shift. Steve Pavlina talks about it a lot. He says you kind of feel like emotional like ambiguity, like you feel like you should be moving in this way and you're doing good, but then you're not seeing the results you want yet, and it just kind of feels like you're doing the wrong thing, but you can't be certain yet because you haven't done it for long enough. And my advice, honestly, is to just stick with it. I won't simplify it to that. I'll expand on that, but you're definitely doing the right thing by sticking with it for a week, doing it every day. In another week, it's gonna your new behaviors will start sticking, your new affirmations, and you will start feeling differently about things. That's one of the things that when I said I had experience with it, waking up early, changing my diet, and getting into like a serious fitness routine for me. Those three things took me quite a lot of time to get into because before I didn't eat as healthy. This was like 2 years ago now, but I wasn't eating as healthy. I wasn't sleeping good, and I wasn't really into fitness that much. But I knew that since I like didn't really have experience with that area in my life, that it had a really high impact on the rest of my behavior because I was eating like fast food. I wasn't really taking good care of my body, and it was really hard for me to get momentum going in like almost the exact opposite direction, to the point where like I'd get anxiety about changing behaviors because I'd have like an attachment to familiarity and like patterns that doing new things would almost like challenge me. I don't know if that obviously would challenge me, but it would almost like something new is unfamiliar, and even if it's something good that's new, it seems so different at first that it doesn't seem right. And it wasn't until I kept going with that, and it's kind of like, because I know it's so hard to put it in words because I know exactly what you're dealing with, but it's like you almost, it's kind of like you're just getting your feet wet, and you don't really have enough experience with the new yet, but you've got plenty of experience with the old. So your mind and your subconscious is going to try and pull you back into your comfort zone, exactly. And I think that's really what it is breaking through that momentum and just keep going and going, because honestly, I've never noticed positive or negative results from any habit or any trial until after like 28, 30 days, and that's why I always say the 30-day trials are the way to go. But that's my 2 cents on that. I think that it's a matter of momentum and already having that momentum built up in your comfort zone, and then going into that new area of growth, which is a completely different, you could call it like a frequency, a vibe, or whatever you want to call it, but it's new, it's foreign relative to what you already have and what you're familiar with, so it's going to feel different. It's kind of like a, what's a good word? What's a good analogy for that? I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm sure I'll come up with something hilarious in a minute. But Roman, do you have anything to add to that? I feel like you might have something. You got nothing? You seem like you were thinking. What about Terrence? Do you have anything to say, man? Anything to add to that? Because you said you kind of feel the same way, same issue on that.
Yeah, I do have that issue as well. I've read your article about the challenges, and I've been, I was already into fitness. I was a soldier for 13 years, so I'm always into fitness. So, and I've been using positive affirmations. Yeah, I'm shredded. I'm just playing, but no, yeah, just I've been doing it 30 days. Like, as far as meditating as well, and I feel different. I feel very different. But I do have that issue as well of doing like when I'm about to do something new, even though it's positive. I mean, I think people associate change with negative, even though it's positive change. I think they um, take change as being negative, and because they are just so used to the familiarity of how things are that they're scared to do anything new. So I do have that issues myself. So I wanted to touch on something else, but I mean, also I used to have a lot of anxiety as well, and a lot of the times I used to be on like autopilot, like my behavior, like it's just it's just so it's I am more aware now that I've been reading a lot of your literature and your articles, and like I said, it's tough. Like changing, like actually being aware of your behavior. I mean, like being aware is it can be quite difficult trying to be aware of your thoughts. And I mean, I find it quite difficult. I don't know about anybody else, but like if you just really sit down and like think about like what's happening, like because we're not trained to really think. Like most of us, we just kind of roll on like auto response kind of. So I mean, I find it quite challenging, but anyway, but no, that's my 2 cents.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that it almost goes back to the subconscious thing because it's like as if the subconscious mind is kind of like the control room, and your conscious mind is kind of like the pilot, and the pilot can't deal with the controls that it can't see or it just isn't aware of. You can only use the elements that you're available to you or that you're aware of. And ultimately, I think, because I've done this before, and it's really exhausting, like you said, Terrence, to try and become aware of every little thing and be like, okay, well, is like, why am I thinking this way? And like, you can ask those questions, but eventually you're just going to burn yourself out, and you'll just get aggravated. And one of the things that I found as kind of like a slight remedy to that is almost what Roman was saying, is kind of like relaxing and not being like so neurotic about it, and then sort of like catching them as they arise, if that makes sense. Like any negative thoughts or like any like assumptions you have, like when you see it pop up, like you don't be like waiting at the gates for it, but like don't just be like falling asleep on yourself. You have to kind of find that like middle ground where it's like, huh, this is like a common behavior that I have. Why do I think this way? And like whenever I ask myself, why do I do this way, I'll immediately start like, oh my gosh, like this is connected to that. Like, oh my gosh, what if I behave this way because I have a limiting belief on this, and I'll like make a note on it, and then like I'll investigate it further, and I'm like, wow, that infects my thoughts about money or like relationships, or like that ties into this, and then you just start to see these like webs of like subconscious beliefs, and it's almost like you figure out your own mind. I feel like I'm missing something in the comment section going on over here. Exactly, Roman. I will say that for me, that is the purpose of the types of meditation that I do, is to transmute negative emotions into positive emotions and kind of swap out the negative, kind of be realizing the negative isn't such a big deal and that it's a choice. And for me, that neutralizes it instantly. And then it's almost like you're free to go in a new direction. You can't just like ignore the negative and then expect to be positive. You almost have to like identify with the negative, accept it, and then it neutralizes. It loses its power when you're no longer like afraid of it. Like the same thing with change. Like the only constant is change, including change itself. Like everything is changing constantly. So you'll have that like that base point of you might be positive one day and feel great, but then the next day you don't do anything different, and then suddenly you feel really anxious. That happens with me a lot. Things are completely fine on the outside and I'm doing great. My workflow is great, but then the next day, for whatever reason, I feel really anxious or irritated or negative, and I have to just stop myself and kind of do like those simple breath exercises and realize you neutralize yourself. Like, okay, well, I accept that I feel this way. Nothing good that's going on outside of me is really that bad. I have a strong intuition that this is just like a subconscious thought somewhere, or like a limiting belief that's rearing its head, and then neutralizing the negativity or the resistance to change. Because ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to, is the resistance to the obvious. That's something I'm becoming more aware of, is like whenever we have a negative thought or a feeling or an emotion or anything, to me that's always a sign that we're resisting something, resisting some sort of change. And when we accept that resistance, it neutralizes itself and we're able to move forward. So like like Jamie was saying about being uncomfortable or still having anxiety with starting those new habits, I think that deep down we all experience that same level of anxiety or that same manifestation of anxiety in a different way. It could be with like communicating, or like just going to use some like basic examples, like going in for a job interview, or like calling back a place to find if like they will hire you, or something where it's kind of like you're really on the line, you're really pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. It's always that type of resistance to me that's like really testing you, and like I think that's where like your growth actually happens, is when you accept that that's a barrier, or that's something that scares the hell out of you. And just by recognizing that and accepting it, you neutralize it. You almost like turn the lights on, and like the boogeyman's not there anymore. You like open the closet, check under the bed, there's nothing there. Okay, like I know what this is all me, I have control over this. You neutralize it, and then kind of what we were saying about earlier is you add that positive spin onto it and you empower yourself, and that's what enables you to move through it. But I mean, that's what I feel, and like I agree with what Roman just said. That's why meditation is powerful, because it kind of, our mind, Terrence was saying earlier that like, and I think we all will agree on this, is like our autopilot, our minds are always racing like 100 freaking million miles a minute. Thoughts are going this way, we're interpreting what's going on, your fight or flight kicks in, all these like very human things, all the things that make us human, all these wonderful things that make us human kick in. And I think meditation is kind of like slowing that down so you can kind of see what's going on. It's kind of like someone throwing a fastball at you, and then you slow that down, and then it's like you start getting like, they're like lobbing the pitches to you. You can kind of see what's coming your way. It's kind of like you slow the pitching machine down a bit. You're not just seeing these fastballs fly by. You kind of slow the game down. And you go, okay, gotcha, I see what's going on now. Wait a minute, like it's kind of like tuning your radio to a higher frequency, and you're slowing things down. And you can kind of, you have more of a chance to maneuver in between your choices. You kind of see what types of choices you're making and what you're going to get out of it, how you're feeling about those choices. It kind of just recenters you and kind of regrounds you. Yeah, exactly, Roman. Awareness neutralizes the fears. I think that's what I'm getting to. And that's why I love these conversations, guys, is because I'll get going on a rant like that, and I'll say things that I would never even think of on my own until we get talking about them. And like that's a huge insight for me, even though I just said that like 10 times, is that awareness neutralizes fears, or it neutralizes anxiety. Because if you're, I think that's ultimately what it would be, right? Because if you're not aware of it and you can kind of sense it, you're going to just naturally be scared of it because it's different. It's a different thing. It's outside your comfort zone. Everything you're aware of, it represents a comfort zone, in my opinion. And anything you're not aware of, when you start getting a taste of that, it's like, oh, what's this? Like, it's different, so it's wrong. Like, just instantly, it's bad, it's unfamiliar, it's not associated, and then all those automatic autopilot subconscious programs come on, group, like this is different, this is wrong, this is bad, this is evil, stay away from it, don't go near this, have nothing to do with this, stay in your comfort zone, don't look under the bed, don't look in the closet, don't turn the lights on. But yeah, I'll let someone else speak, because that was kind of a long time of me talking there. Does anyone else have anything else to add? I kind of want to catch up on the convo on the side here.
I think Jamie just asked, like, how do I identify when it's delusion and when it's intuition? Like, how do you feel that you're following your intuition and not some deluded ideas?
Awesome. This is going like in an excellent direction right now, because Terrence was asking me about intuition earlier, so we can tie this all in. I've read some really, really awesome and like intellectually like mind-numbing stuff on intuition, and like how to differentiate it between like the higher and the lower, and what's just like an emotional reaction and what's like genuine intuition. And I will do my best to break this down, because there's a resource I want to share with you guys after, because it explains it way better than I could, but I'll try and give it my spin. Basically, we have like the lower emotional animal impulses, which are just like, our biology, our, genetics, like the fight or flight type thing. That's what's going to tell you like, oh, this is uncomfortable, get out of here, like don't go over here, this is going to kill you, like the real serious fight or flight. But then we have like the other impulses, which are, they almost feel like a stronger connectivity of something just telling you like, go in this direction. I know that you can't see it right now, but like nothing around you confirms this at all, but like trust me, go in this direction. and things will work out, or like this, and this, and it's very difficult to describe until you start experimenting with it, because everything that I will say from this point on will just sound like I'm being like subjective or I'm using my own experience. But I've had other people verify this too, which assures me that I'm not completely nuts. But basically, like, I guess I'll have to ask you a question first to kind of get where you are, or else I'll just go off on a tangent. With your intuition, Jamie, have you ever had experiences where, for whatever reason, something's felt like it was going to turn out good or bad, and you turn out to be right without having any like pre-knowledge of the situation? Can you recall anything, like even if it's minor, like don't go here today, or don't go to work today, or don't do this, or take the long way home in your car, and you find out that like there was a huge accident or something? I don't know. Like these are just big. These are like overarching examples of like when intuition can really guide you towards anything.
I mean, I've had a lot of experiences where I feel like it could be my intuition telling me something, but I don't really remember whether the results were like, oh, good, I was right, or oh, crap, I was totally wrong there. I don't know why. I mean, it's weird. Like, I can totally remember the former, but not the latter. But like, I still believe in intuition. I know it's good. It's important.
It's definitely important. Let me ask you a question. Do you have like an inclination or like a preference for things that really, really interest you, like personally on an individual level? Like, do you have like some type of attraction to, I don't know, like a certain type of like art or music, or a hobby outside of what you went to school for, or anything like that, that like really like lights you up inside, like makes you happy, like just thinking about it? It can be something really basic, like really simple, or a hobby, or like anything, an activity.
Well, what I can tell you is that for a long time I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was just kind of like going along for the ride with no purpose. And then once I started really paying attention to things that I liked and found interesting, I realized that they were all connected in some way. And that blew my mind, because I never saw any connection before that. And now, like, all of my interests, like, if I told you, you might think they're totally random, but I could actually justify to you why they're connected. And they really, like, make up who I am, which is kind of cool.
I'm actually very interested to hear those things, because it sounds like you're narrowing down where your intuition is just by saying that.
That's funny. Okay, I love traveling. You like healthy type stuff, like learning about and trying to convince myself to, let's say, eat as healthy as possible. Like, I used to want to be a nutritionist, and then I considered being a personal trainer, which is kind of a joke, but I mean, whatever, working out's like good. Acting, which is really similar to psychology, which I have my degree in. I think I already mentioned traveling, so the fact that and also, like, I feel like it's really important to kind of be detached from just stuff. I mean, like, not in a cynical way, but in a free-spirited type of way. And I've up and left and moved to Brooklyn for a month. And then now I'm pretty much up and leaving and just going to LA. So, I mean, these are all kind of on whims, but like, I don't know if it's spontaneous and out of nowhere, or if it's kind of like, oh, this actually just makes perfect sense for me, which it probably just makes perfect sense for me, and I just like I didn't realize it until recently. Oh, I did think of something. Okay, so earlier this year I moved home. I used to live in Orlando. I moved home to stay with my mom to help her because she was in a car accident, and I helped like take care of her and stuff. And then I was going to move to New York because I was getting really bored of Orlando. Like, I wanted some like big, exciting city. So I had this whole plan. I even had a roommate set up for New York. And while I was home, my dad's neighbor is involved in the film industry, and like he brought his producer friend over to try to get my dad to invest in a movie. So while they're there, they were talking, and they found out I was an actress, and the guy was asking me what my situation was. I said, like, oh, like, I thought I was making this really big move, like, oh, I'm gonna move to New York. Like, I thought I was impressing him. He goes, why would you do that? You should just move to LA. That makes so much more sense. And so then that's how I decided on moving to LA, because I was like, oh yeah, you're right, that makes more sense. And instead of moving in a month, like, I actually took like 6 months, and I've been living back at home this whole time, and I've been like kind of miserable because it's so boring here. But yeah, I guess that's all like leading me towards actually pursuing my dream, where all the other things were just like I was being sidetracked without realizing it. So I guess that works for that.
Everything that you just said to me describes like intuition to a T. And what I wanted to say is it's easy to get confused with that because when you're doing things that don't fulfill your enthusiasm, then you kind of get knocked off track, and that's when like the ambiguity starts to scramble you, and that's when you get lost. And that's why I always say like following your highest excitement or following your passion, no matter how cheesy that sounds. When you do that, you strengthen the connection to what actually drives you, and then it becomes so obvious to you. Everyone else around you can think you're crazy. Everyone else around you can say that like you're overshooting your dreams, or you know your dreams are too big. You need to be more realistic. Yeah, Terrence. Cheesy, cliche, but I really like. I have a bunch of resources to share with you guys after. But there's this guy named Daryl Anka who's a channeler, which you could take with a grain of salt. You could say that channeling it's phony, it's cheesy, and I will agree with you. I'll say that this guy could be completely full of shit, but what his message is, don't focus on the messenger, focus on the message. And what he says is, when you follow your highest excitement in the present moment, it's kind of like it's a complete package, because you won't always see how what you're doing is necessarily related to what your ultimate goal is, like saying you want to be an actress or a nutritionist or any of that. You have that like essence within you, that core vibration, and when you pursue that via things that excite you, that excitement is your natural frequency. Like that's your like your home base almost, or like your default setting, if you will. Like that's what your default setting is. And when we're born into this world, we're conditioned and we're so confused, and our subconscious gets in the way of that default setting. So your intuition is pulling you back towards turning that signal on, and that's your true self. That's who you really are, your core center self. That's your consciousness came here. I could speculate on this, but your consciousness incarnated at this point to express that signal as strongly and as passionately as possible, because that is your ultimate purpose, is to express and reflect the highest essence of that. Like being an actress, following your gut, going to New York, doing these things. You might meet new people that you can't see how this is connected. Everything's going to be happening really fast, but if you keep your core essence there and follow that passion, I have no doubt that you are going to end up somewhere where your influence is maximized, where you're used in a way that, you know, instead of being a nutritionalist and saying, like, I don't want to say you were settling for it, but you seem to be really driven towards acting. Like, that seems to be a really high passion for you. If you were to settle for nutrition instead of acting, you might not end up somewhere in nutrition that would be as effective for you to serve others as if you became an actress and expressed yourself fully and fully trusted yourself. You might be in a position to influence people, to make them more confident, make them more conscious, make them more aware of their own decisions. You have one hell of a story to tell about how you went from living in Florida, moving back home, and having this, and this going on, then all of a sudden deciding to move to LA and pursue your dreams. And if you think about it, guys, like seriously, everyone, not just Jamie's story, but think of how many people that are successful describe their story that way. Like, I was just some guy, you know, doing this, and this, and all of a sudden I just decided to say screw it and try and go with my gut and do what really drove me. And then you have guys like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all these big head honchos who never went to college, or they dropped out. They never took the traditional path. And yet somehow they always came out and ended up being like really influential people. And to me, that's just kind of like an affirmation that when you follow that signal of excitement, what truly drives you, it doesn't have to be a career, it doesn't have to be a hobby. It could just be something as simple as like knitting sweaters, if that's what makes you happy. Like if that's truly what you feel like you're supposed to be expressing, and you do that, and you share it with the world, you're going to be moving in a direction that represents your true self. You're going to be expressing yourself in a way that will get you to where you should be. And that's kind of my dollar and change on intuition, if you will. I don't know if anyone else has something else they want to add to that. I'm seeing some good stuff over here on the side. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in.
Yeah, I like on intuition. Because you said like, yeah, like following that passion, the ground, intuition, right? I think intuition is very, how do you say that? Like, you kind of grasp it well. It's something like on the gut level. And something that just like you have a feeling about something and it's either good or bad. But I think you can influence intuition as well. I think you can. This what I put in the comments here was like the human capacity for self-deception is unlimited. I think we can deceive ourselves a lot. Like if you only look at autosuggestion, you can like heal yourself with thoughts, right? Like or well that hasn't been confirmed by official science. But like there are cases of people like having cancer and like doing certain thoughts like and comedy, for example, and they make themselves better. Or like Norman Cousins is someone like that who cured himself by I forgot what he did. He watched a lot of comedy, I think, and yeah, so he just what he did, he just like upgraded his vibration, so to speak, like his general mood and being. So I think it's easy to get lost on the term intuition. Like I just did that on intuition, but I think intuition comes down to yeah, thank you. Intuition comes down to I lost it. It's late here. What does it come down to? Like okay, so having a good or bad feeling about something, self-deception. Yeah, no, I lost it here.
So yeah, I would say I would add to that where I almost want to say that what I was saying earlier about like a good or a bad feeling isn't really intuition, because after I described and got really clear on what I was saying, what I spoke about a minute ago, I would almost say like when you have that good or bad feeling, it's not so much worrying about like what feels good or what feels right or wrong. It's
right. I got back. Yeah.
Before.
Could you not like turn off your mic completely, because then like I don't know, like not turn it off completely actually, because it's like if you cut it off completely, like, it's like a monologue, and when you turn it on, it feels more like a real conversation. I don't know.
you're on the air, Roman.
The silence is disturbing. Okay, which is rare for me to say. So yeah, what I was saying actually, the intuition is for me, it's basically your subconscious. You're thinking through your subconscious directly, and your subconscious is giving you like a general direction, because subconscious is very little pointed and sharp and crisp and direct and concrete. It's more like a general feeling or a hunch or so it is very much calculated, but it's not very clear, your subconscious, or it might like you have to like feel it in a way. So I think that intuition is basically just another way to subscribe your subconscious.
I agree. I would even go so far as to here's a deep question for you guys. It seems like we're all narrowing in on this because of this conversation, but I definitely agree with Roman said. I think like intuition is kind of like opening up a bit more to the subconscious and not so much filtering the conscious thoughts in your mind and kind of just going straight to the control room and getting that feedback. So my question is to you, do you think that the subconscious would technically be like the seat of the soul, or like where the consciousness sits, if that's like the home center, like that's where your consciousness is seated, or like that's where you're truly experiencing reality from through your senses? Like that's the, not necessarily your brain or your mind, but like where your consciousness intersects with this reality, if that makes sense. Kind of like here's like the metaphysical world, here's like physical reality, and like the subconscious mind is like right where those two things meet. So your higher self, if you will, or like the spirit, or whatever you want to call it, the oversoul, and then like your physical body, is that like where it's like where they meet, where it's seated? Like if your intuition comes from your subconscious, you're just kind of filtering through your conscious thoughts and your subconscious programming.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was very un-Buddhist there.
Catching some flies.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah,
Um,
Freud's
oh,
iceberg.
no, I don't agree actually. I think
Okay,
your soul is
that's why I asked.
um, very much deeper and not like having concrete thoughts, and it's more like just being. It's not even thinking. It's not even processing stuff. It's more like flowing energy in a way. But um, and I think yeah, I think it's closer to the metaphor of the heart. Like follow your heart, or like your heart is basically your
Hmm.
subconscious, I think. So what people mean, or your gut. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Hmm.
It's basically somewhere between your heart and your gut. But
That's why
I
I
think
asked, 'cause I was interested.
I think your soul is on an even deeper level. I don't know. I think I mean, of course, it's all connected, but that's out of the question. But everything's connected, so yeah, it's a tough one, and I haven't really. I didn't get into that very much uh, yet.
The reason I asked that is because it's kind of like it's almost a trick question because in my own experiences, I'm finding that my head and my heart are feeling more connected, almost like I was saying last week, where my heart feels like a second brain in a way, where it kind of feels like I'm having a more direct communication. Before I was very much in my head and very like intellectual, very like trying to think through things. And, like that's really good. That'll get you very far because you'll just use logic and oh that's why would I do that? That's dangerous or that's not doesn't make sense. Like, but then like the intuition, like the meditation has brought to me like literally feeling like the energy in my chest like build and like expand, and it feels like I'm like I don't know if like that's why people say you have an aura, but it felt like energy was moving outward and like my head and my heart were synced. And I think like the more that I meditate, the more that I realize that the subconscious mind is only so much of the equation before you have like your heart is almost like it just knows. It's like your intuitive center, and that you balance those things. So you have that like it's almost like you have like the higher knowledge or higher logic, I guess that's what it's called. It's kind of like the head and the heart align together, and you kind of have that balance of intuition, but you still have that logic to guide you. It's kind of like the perfect harmony of both instead of just either or and being completely in your head or totally in your heart and just being like blinded. And I think that intuition itself, when we follow it, is like I said earlier, like that leading thread that's leading us towards our true, exactly alignment, our true higher purpose, or like our reason for like the highest path of service or whatever, like whether it's being an actress or being a writer or a blogger or whatever anyone wants to do. When you follow that excitement, that's kind of like your no bullshit. I don't have to think about this. Like this is here. I know that's right. I don't have to sit down and meditate. It's almost like that's like your safety switch. Like it's always going all the time. You don't need to be sitting there and meditating for 20 minutes to like, oh yeah, now I know what I'm supposed to do. Like it's always on. It's kind of like it's your safety switch. It's always there. Whereas meditating brings you into greater alignment with like the three aspects of your being, or how like your chakras or whatever you want to call it. I think it's different for everybody, but for me, it's always been like this huge duality between like the head and the heart. And the more that I meditate, the more I find that alignment of the two is kind of like I feel like a whole person. As stupid as that sounds, I feel like a whole human being when I finally align those two things, where I could be completely in my head one day and completely in my heart another day, and then be really like emotional and really like letting emotional impulse guide my day. Like I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel right to me. But my head will be saying, like you should do this anyway. You should use self-discipline and this, and this. And then some days I'll be in my head where it's like, don't worry about other people's feelings. Don't worry about how other people are going to feel. Just action is all that matters. And like through experiencing both of those extremes, I learned that those are both like very suboptimal routes to go. And it wasn't until I started meditating and like Roman said, like aligning in those things, that I started to feel like I was a whole person. Like I was like, oh man, it all makes sense now. Like my head makes sense, my heart makes sense. They're working together. It's like true alignment. And I'm wondering if that's something that a lot of people, what causes anxiety in a lot of people maybe, because ever since I started doing that, like Roman was saying, I haven't been like anxious or like nervous or anything. Because like whenever I'm in a situation that would usually test me, I just kind of like remind myself of how I feel when I get those like really good congruencies. And like, wow, just remember how like whole you felt when you had that going for that couple days when you meditate. You have that like flow going. Like you could be perceiving this from that perspective. So there's always a different way to view things. It's never just like how you're feeling right now about it isn't the only way you can feel about it. And to me, that's really empowering, because that always means you have more than one way to look at it, like the neutralizing type thing. I guess that's what I'm getting back to. But it's almost like, even though we have a lot of control, ultimately there are times when like situations will test us, and it won't be as easy to, you know, all of a sudden like sit down and meditate for 10 minutes and go, okay, now I'm balanced, I can answer this question now, or do this or that. Like, you can't do that in public, it doesn't work. You can't do that in the real world, it doesn't work. But I think the intuition is like the safety switch, because it pulls you back to home base all the time, no matter what's going on. If you follow that and you stick with your passion, that will always ultimately lead you somewhere. So that's kind of like the safety rope, like last resort type thing, that's always there. But just knowing that higher states of consciousness can be reached when you do it enough, it lessens the severity of like negative things, because you realize that you are capable of rising beyond that. And even if you're not able to do that when that thing is occurring, just the fact that you know for sure that you're capable of shifting up or raising your vibe or expanding your consciousness gives you much more confidence, because you go, okay, well, this sucks right now, but I know like tomorrow I'm going to think completely different about it, or, you know, I could be thinking about this in a less stellar way, because I could be tired, I could be hungry, there could be a ton of different influences, and like, this isn't necessarily the end of the world, or this doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on the wrong track, or all those other negative emotions. I think it's very important to have almost like that like calibrated state, I guess, if you want to say calibrated. I don't know, I kind of throw that term around.
So Jason,
yeah.
Jamie just asked, like, how do you attain the heart mind alignment? Like, how do you mentioned meditation? Is there anything you do with your thoughts in particular, or something, or what you focus on that creates more like a better connection?
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you asked that, because this is honestly one of my most passionate things to describe to people. And I actually just finished an ebook that I'm releasing Monday called The Practice of Presence, which goes into it, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to say, like, wait for the ebook. No, that's stupid. But I'll tell you exactly what it is right now. And this is the one thing that I've learned in the past year that has changed everything for me. And it's going to sound crazy, and I'm willing to put myself out there to sound like a crazy person, because when you try it, it works. And I will gladly like write a guide or something, or do like a single talk with someone later if they want to, and kind of like do a customized guide. Regular meditation, sit down. The 10 breath exercise is the first step, is that breathing in and out, getting that like nice slow tempo going, so you slow your thoughts down and get like centered. And then what I do, honestly, is I sit there and I think about, to me personally and to you personally, you have to kind of imagine, visualize, or just get yourself to the point where you can become so excited about something that you feel that excitement. So like, it helps to visualize like whatever to you would represent like the highest bliss or highest excitement. Like for me, I used having a lot of money, even though it's a really shallow example. To me, that would trigger a feeling of excitement. It's not so much the stimulus as it is like the feeling it triggers, because that's what you want. It could be losing weight, it could be finding your ideal mate, or whatever, anything. It literally, the goal here is to just trick yourself into feeling excited. I know that sounds very stupid, but you have to do whatever is necessary to get yourself to feel like you're extremely excited, that, you know, this is amazing, or like remember something that did make you excited. It doesn't necessarily have to be a goal, it's just the feeling of excitement itself is the most important part. So like for me, I would visualize having a lot of money, being able to travel, and being able to speak on this stuff in front of crowds and make a living from doing it. To me, that would be like the highest, most exciting thing. My life would be the highest fulfillment, whatever you want to call it. Focus on that and just like visualize it. Think of like, I would think of being on an airplane and flying, and then like being able to afford like really nice clothes, being able to, you know, have a really nice house, have it be exactly how I wanted, and eventually you start building excitement within you, and you're going to like feel it and feel it. And this is the very important part. When you have the excitement built to a peak, it probably takes about 5 minutes or so, and you're doing this while you're breathing. So you're doing like the breathing in and the excitement in, and then the excitement out, kind of like a back and forth type balance, like excitement in, excitement out, and then you feel that energy. It's kind of like a feedback loop. You'll feel it building and building and building. And then when you like feel it like really rise to a peak, when you're just like, okay, this is awesome, you're just gonna feel good. Even if you stopped at that point, your day would still be awesome. Like, that's how you know you're doing it right. Like, you're just, okay, this feels great. I literally feel physically amazing. Then this part sounds nuts, but on my inward breaths from that point, I take the thought in my head almost as like I'm receiving it. So I'm like breathing in, I'm picturing it. And then as I'm breathing it out, I visualize the thought going from my head to my heart, like they're playing catch, almost like I'm throwing a ball back and forth. And the energy goes to my heart, and on my outward breaths and then my inward breaths, it's the same loop, and eventually you just start feeling that energy build and build and build and build and build. And then after that, it's just like, I can't even describe to you in language what it's like. It's like you're just synced. It's like, oh my God, like it's almost like you're waking up your heart. You're like turning it on, and you're gonna feel like this energy just coming out of your chest, and the excitement is completely congruent. It's not just in your head anymore; it's in your heart too. And I think, and when I do that, I notice an increase in synchronicity. I know an increase in serendipity, opportunity. It's almost kind of like your head is the receiver and your heart is the transmitter. That's what I was telling Jack. It's kind of like you get your ideas coming in your head and you feed them down your heart, and that emotional output is what generates the law of attraction ultimately. Because when I can do that, I notice that it's like my thinking and my heart are in tune, and it's almost like I have like a Wi-Fi connection to the universe. Like I'll be thinking of something, or I won't be thinking of something, and I'll get a random thought in my head, and then I'll see a correlation like an hour later, or I'll just have like a heads up type thing, and then like my intuition feels stronger. My confidence is obviously stronger. My mood is through the roof. I feel happy. I feel healthy. I feel connected. I feel full of gratitude. It's kind of like the ultimate like skeleton key type thing. And I find that when I do that, it's like everything else is just like a byproduct. It's like you're like, I don't want to use the term like you're in heaven, but like it feels like that's the closest thing to like heaven on earth to me, is like that feeling of like aligning the head and the heart. And so I wrote an ebook about it because I wanted to share it, and I made like diagrams, and I photoshopped diagrams and like wrote really in detail. I made it like really cool with like lots of colors and like pages and notated and stuff, because to me that is like the single most important meditation, because you can do all these other meditations and they might work for like, you know, bringing your mood up, but like this to me is like the ultimate one that I've tried. And now when I go back and read certain things, it makes sense on a different level, because I kind of have like a different like experience with it. Like when I read about someone saying like, oh, like align your heart or your heart chakra, I'm like, I think that's what they're talking about, is like getting those things aligned, even though like I don't know much about chakras or like Reiki or any of that stuff, but it seems like just by focusing on the head and the heart, it's like everything else just kind of works itself out. Like those are the only two that matter, I guess. Like when you get those two in congruency with each other, everything changes. And like I said, it makes me feel like I'm a whole person. It's like you shift up, and I think that's what people mean when they say like you're raising your vibe, or you know, you're expanding your consciousness, because like you do. You feel more conscious. You feel more connected. I feel like a whole person. I mean, for me, it's like it's life changing. And when I'm on that level and I write, I notice that when I write stuff and publish it, it seems to get the biggest response when I'm in that state. Even though I'm not trying to purposely write a certain way, it's just like the flow is there. And it's like when I publish work or share work while I'm in that state, it seems to get the highest response or feedback, which I think is really interesting. Kind of like reinforces that state of mind a bit. Maybe I loosen up a little more, and I don't. My subconscious is more open, and I'm not restricting myself and having like doubts, because I'm just like so in it, in the flow. I've heard of athletes talk about this a lot too, like getting in a flow state, not necessarily with meditation, but just feeling like, you know, they're in the game, they're part of the game, they're really in the race. Like I think that's another manifestation of that. I noticed that when I play music, when I compose music, when I sit there with a guitar or a keyboard or whatever, even if I'm not meditating, that state will naturally occur. And it's always happened for me like that. So I'm wondering if meditation itself just kind of brings you back to your center, because it's like it's like now I know how to do it, whereas before it just seemed random. And like now I've kind of like figured out how to actually do it. It's like it's changed my entire life. It's inspired me to do things like this. A year ago I never would have thought to do a webinar and just start inviting people in and talking about stuff, or create a website or a blog, or publish intellectual work and share it, or I'd be like second guessing myself so much and on all of those things. And it's just like I'm excited to try and see what works and what doesn't work. Like I'm excited to grow, and it's a completely new mindset for me. Yeah, exactly. Terrence, meditation and workout. Working out is like kind of like a type of meditation. I've noticed that when I do work out for like an hour, like heavy lifting or heavy aerobic exercise, I get into a similar state. Runner's high is very similar to that. I don't know if any of you guys run or if you have experience with that. I see like after 30 minutes of cardio at like a decent pace, I start to get in that flow state. My mood, your endorphins do go up when you exercise, so that is part of it. But I think it's very interesting that you can reach that state just sitting still and focusing your willpower and your mind and your heart together. To me, that is like the most, like no pun intended, mind-blowing thing like ever. But runner's high, yeah. like I said, it's definitely an endorphin rush. I liken it to the fact that you're sweating out a lot of the toxins in your body, and you're kind of like flushing out the negative toxins and whatnot. So you're giving your body a chance to like refresh, and that in itself is very like invigorating, and that will boost your consciousness. Any exercise will boost your consciousness for that reason. The more you sweat, the more you're going to feel refreshed after. It seems like kind of counterintuitive, but it's totally true. Like if you sit around and you just like stagnate, your body is basically just holding on to like all the toxins that are in the foods and the stuff that we drink. So like if you don't sweat that out or burn it off somehow, it's gonna like have an eventual effect on like your mood and whatnot. Running, meditation, power, strength training. I'm going to kind of collect my thoughts for a minute because I just said a lot and my mind is going crazy now. If someone wants to talk for a moment, then I'll jump back in. Terrence is a pretty fit guy. Terrence, what do you have to say about like fitness and have you noticed like any sort of like flow going on there? Because you seem to be on the same wavelength with that stuff too.
Definitely. I feel like when I do work out, normally I do have a lot of thoughts rushing through my head at most times. But when I work out pretty much every day. So when I do work out, and meditate, that's when I feel like I'm at my most, my mind is most clear. And right after I get done or while I'm doing it, I feel like my mind is so clear, like it's like a laser, like, you know, my mind is like sharp as a knife, like while I'm working out or right after I meditate. I just feel like I'm so clear, like at that moment or right after, I just feel so clear and like, you know, it's a good feeling. And I was just touching on like strength and willpower, like willpower and focus. Like strength training, like I do like push-ups with a weight vest on, and I do about 6 or 7 sets, and you know, like I said, it does strengthen like your willpower and your focus. Like it trains my mind, like just when I'm about to give up, and I'm telling myself subconsciously, I'm telling myself that you got this, and it's like been building up my willpower, like so to speak. So, and like far as meditation, it helps with focus as well, because I found it quite difficult to sit still at one point in time. I felt it like quite difficult to sit still and like try to not control my thoughts, but just like kind of just be aware of them, and you know, kind of just like observe my thoughts. I found that to be quite difficult, and I do find that my focus, I've been like a lot more focused. Like I can focus on one thing for a specific amount of time, but I'm starting to train. I'm training myself, so to speak, to be more focused and not get too sidetracked with too many other things. And I asked a question while you were speaking, and I asked that are there times when you feel cut off from your intuition, so to speak? I try to be a pretty logical person. Like I sometimes I'm too analytical. And people say, well, you need to feel things more. So, like I said, there are times I do feel cut off from my intuition. And I was wondering if anyone had a feeling like that, where you not really operating from a level of, not a gut instinct, but not like far as like safety. I'm talking about far as like following your passion path, so to speak, or you know, should I do this, or I told you I had a situation, and I'm just saying, like far as like your internal compass, like do you feel like cut off from it at times, or does anybody else have that feeling? I just wanted to know.
Definitely. That kind of ties in earlier with what I was saying about how sometimes it's almost like you have that like you have your intuition, then you have like your passion path, like you said, which I love that term. Your intuition is kind of almost like that, like I was saying, that safety valve or like that escape rope that's always there in some shape or form, even if it's like really muted or subtle. But it almost ties back into like the more you meditate, the more conscious you become. When you kind of lose that signal for a little bit, because I know what you're saying, some days it just feels like you have no connection to it. It's just like, what the hell, you're just kind of like floating. It just feels like you're floating alone, like in the ocean by yourself. There's no connection, you can't see land, it's foggy. And times like that, that's like where your willpower is really tested, because I think a lot of it has to do with physiology, your mind being burnt out on something, or you're just not clear for whatever reason, you didn't sleep right. There are so many things that can affect your connection to, you know, your consciousness and how it affects your body. And on days like that, I literally just try my best to do things that I know, even if I don't appreciate them at that moment, things that like are representative of my passion, like writing or playing music. And eventually it does bring me back around very slowly. And then I notice that like within the coming days that picks up again for me. But like as far as dealing with like those moments where you're disconnected, I think it helps to stay in motion. What you said a minute ago, Terrence, about like your willpower being tested when you do push-ups. I was getting really clear when I was taking a break from speaking there about the Newton's law of motion, like objects in motion stay in motion, objects at rest stay at rest. I think like when we stay active and we're taking action, even if we're not feeling it intuitively all the time, if we're taking action in a general direction of our passions, I think that ultimately that starts a feedback loop. So like if you're really passionate about, like, I'm just going to use Jamie's example because it's a good one, of being an actress, some days you'll feel disconnected from that, but as long as you keep moving in that general direction, you will feel that kickback on, even on some days that you feel disconnected. Because I think that it's Rowan said it really good last time. Rowan. There's a confusing Google chat right there for you guys. When he said the law of diminishing returns, you can only meditate so much, you can only focus on this stuff so much before it's going to start to lose its effect on you on some days. And I think that's a very natural thing to happen. But as long as you know, like, I've been in these higher states before, I know they can be reached, I know that I've been through things worse than this, like, that's where your willpower grows. So like almost when like your consciousness is unable to connect to the universal Wi-Fi, you're kind of like on the battlefield with your raw willpower, and then you're growing that, and then it's kind of like, all right, cool, then you get the signal back, and it's like, all right, all is good. It's kind of like that back and forth play. But I used to have more days like that than not, and I was going to say I've been noticing that since I started meditating, I have less of those days. Even if like it feels like I'm disconnected a little bit, it's nowhere near as much as I used to feel before. I would kind of like to liken that to the fact that I'm really connecting to who I actually am as a person now, as before who I thought I was supposed to be. Or like, I think that's where the ambiguity comes from, is ignoring your passion because like society or culture or like your parents or your conditioning says like you can't do that for a living, or you can't do that, or that's a stupid idea. Artistic types are very familiar with this. Acting, writing, producing, composing music, trying to do anything that isn't like a strict day job type thing, you're going to get a lot of like negative feedback in general. But the more you stick with that and trust your intuition and trust that passion signal, because like you know how you feel about things. I mean, like other people can't feel what you feel, or like learn what you learn and know what you know. Everyone has their own perspective, and it's really hard sometimes, especially if you're an artistic type, to be like in a world where like 3/4 of people are like really on the other side of the fence, and like even though they might appreciate art or anything like that, it's very hard for them to wrap their heads around how logically this could happen and you could be successful by doing this without having to do this. And I think that's why artistic types almost have a leg up, because I think I don't want to speculate, but I always feel like artistic types have more of a connection to intuition and passion because they're driven by other aspects other than like just logic and strict thinking. And I liked when Terrence said like he's really analytical on some days, and I'm like that too. And that's why I said like aligning my head and my heart has like changed me so much. Like I wish you guys could have met me like a year or two ago and talked to me, because I'm sure I would have been saying some really different stuff about the same topics. Because I even Jack will attest to that. I've known Jack for 2 years. And we've both grown so much through working with each other. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you get so much experience with meditation under your belt that your confidence goes up. Everything just reinforces itself. So on days when you get knocked off the horse, you know that you're not down for good. Like, okay, this is just temporary. Like everything is temporary. Highs and lows, they're both temporary. That's a huge realization to come to with growth. Is you're going to feel awesome on some days, you're going to feel like crap on some days, but you're always capable of choosing from that neutral position to see it as an empowering chance to grow. And I hope I didn't overshoot that at all.
Could you wrap that up? Like,
what do we got? Summarize what?
What you just said, like in one sentence or two.
About like staying with your intuition, or reclaiming, like when you get knocked off the horse, that thing. Like you
Well, I suppose you just did that.
When you get knocked off the horse, yeah. When you get disconnected from your intuition, realizing that like everything is temporary, like the highs and the lows, everything's temporary, but you through experience and like your self trust in yourself, you gain the experience to know where your true confidence is, so that when you experience those ups and downs, you know that there's a way to choose again from neutrality. You always have that decision. You recognize that it's neutral because you can choose, and just the fact that it is neutral and you can choose one or the other is very empowering, and that's what keeps you going, is that ability. It's like no matter how far away or disconnected things get, you always have that ability to choose from your neutral center, and that's where your power lies. That's like your ultimate, like, succinct, like if that was an elevator pitch for conscious growth, like that would be it. Like no matter how crazy things get, everything is neutral, and you have every moment is a new choice, no matter how riddled with anxiety or doubt you are. Understand that even though you can't see that you're choosing that, there is always another side to it. And the more you accept that, the more neutral you become. And the more neutral you are, the more you're able to confidently move in either direction instead of just thinking you're diluting yourself. If you think that you're diluting yourself, you're not truly being neutral. Like if you're adapting to the negative automatically, you're not being neutral. You're moving in the direction of negativity. It's very important to regain that center and kind of accept that, yeah, I feel this way right now. But it's not the end of the world. And then you start to realize you take away the power of the negativity. And like I guess that's what I'm saying when I say neutralize. It's not really like being like on the fence and not being for either or. In a way it is, but it's like neutralizing it in the sense of like taking away the power from the negative and bringing it back down to a state where you can choose again, and like neutralizing the threat, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I don't know, maybe now I'm overshooting it because I'm getting like all these crazy ideas in my head. But I think Roman captured it a minute ago when he had you back up.
I think you said it very well when you said like realizing that you have the power to choose in every moment. I think Jamie has something to say, if she wants.
I honestly don't remember like how this even came up, but now I've just been like dwelling in it for the last few minutes. Yeah, hopefully you guys can help like steer me on the right track. So I don't remember where this came up, but I have this like lifelong thing where people in my life make me feel like I'm not good enough in one way or another. So like I used to always be compared to my brother because he's like a genius and a really good artist and lives in Brooklyn. He's dating a model. Like he's the star child or whatever. So I feel like I was always compared to him. And then at work, like, you know, everyone has their strengths. So at work, like, I'm good with customer service, but I'm not like super fast. So people would always like complain that I'm too slow. And then like my mom would do things probably without even realizing it, but like let's say if my nail polish was chipping, she would like say that I need to fix my nail polish because it's chipping, or like I need to wear blush, or I need to wear like lip gloss or whatever. And I just felt like I was fine the way I was, and she would always like try to tell me to like be the best I can or whatever. And then here I was telling my grandpa the other day that I finally have my plan. I'm moving to LA. I was like really excited about it, and he was like, what? Oh, when you said reboot, you don't mean like technical stuff, right? You're just talking about like mental. I just want to make sure. Okay, anyways, oh yeah, so I'm like telling my grandpa I want him to be proud of me, and he was just like, well, do you have a job lined up there? I'm like, no. You know, I'll get to that. I'm not even that worried about it right now because I'm still networking with people and like whatever. Like when I get out there, I'll focus more on it and stuff like that. So I feel like even when I feel that things are fine for myself, then like someone somehow makes a comment or something that makes me feel like that maybe I'm not where I need to be or whatever, and it just like really gets me down. So then my challenge is to not let that get me down. I don't know, whatever. You guys can take the lead here.
That's some serious stuff right there. And well, like what first popped into my head was that all like how it might be a bitter pill to swallow, but all the situations that like you said, like there were multiple situations, multiple people in my life and areas, they all have one thing in common, and and that is you. And I think this is very powerful. With yeah, it might hurt a little bit. Yeah. So and that's also part of taking responsibility for your own experience. Is that you want to identify that it indeed is you, because or like I mean it might not be you, but I mean you can probably change a lot by changing your thinking about the situation. And this is really ties into the start of this session about subconscious programming and stuff like that. And I think some affirmations could be really helpful in this case, because this really comes down to self-worth, I think. Is that correct? Right. So,
I mean, yeah, but it started because, like, let's say when I was younger, if people made me feel like I wasn't good enough, then I didn't have the best self-worth. But then now that I have been doing work on this stuff, that like I have a very high self-worth, but then these things still happen, and then I'm just like, oh crap. Like, okay, well, I certainly have improvements to make or whatever. As far as like being faster at work and like my grandpa means well, he's saying
what did you just say? Like, although you're being faster at work.
no. It's like being faster at work. I still have work to do as far as no, like no one's perfect. So I'm not perfect. I'm improved from maybe how I used to be, but I still have improvements to make, like being faster at work. And I was saying my grandpa means well. He's saying that he wants to make sure I have stuff lined up so that way I'm successful in LA. But I don't know. I guess I'm starting to think okay, well then I eventually do have a job and I'm doing well. Then if I go to update him, then would he say like, oh well, you're not in a big movie yet? But I don't know. That's just like it's like I have that downward spiral. Like I know it's
What?
not the right way of
What do you mean?
thinking.
Like, what you will? He will say. Oh, there's the echo now. Back. Okay, right. So, are you saying that you are waiting for your grandpa to say something like that? It's good that you're good, that you're accomplished, or is that what that I heard? I didn't hear it very well. Like,
I think what I'm saying is I wish that people would, instead of telling me what I'm doing wrong or what I still need to improve on. Hold on, Mom. Oh,
I
okay.
have to copy something. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. I lost my train of thought. Like I wish that people would just say that they're like proud of me, and instead of saying like, oh, well, this is what you need to do instead, or like ask me questions to see if I'm on the right track. Like if they would just say like, you're doing a great job and I'm proud of you, and this is what I find like inspiring.
all right, yeah. Yeah, that's a big one there. Um, I think you can see it as in different ways, but one of the ways you can see it as is looking for approval. That you need the approval of others um, to find like yourself worthy, and to feel good about yourself. And well, one way to do that could be that you could first realize that you're already super awesome for even being here, and like being here in the spiritual sense as well. Like you don't owe it to anybody to do anything right now. And I mean that's like the like just being here is just like yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's like just that you are here right now actually is a miracle. Okay, right. And then so that's really ties in with the whole like you are enough because you just are enough. And then that's the first realization, like that you don't have to be enough in somebody else's eyes. And what you could also do is then, instead of waiting for others to tell you that you're okay, so you feel like you are enough, right? Well, that's very good. And then what you could do is waiting instead of like for other people to come to you and say, hey, okay, um, this you're really doing a great job, and you are awesome, and you're so inspiring me. You could also, like, instead of waiting for other people to do that to you, you can also do that to other people more, like, and express that. And the funny thing is that you will see that it will come back. I mean, yeah, it sounds like, but it sounds like a little weird, but it's like it's a mirroring effect. Like what you push out, you will get back in a way. So if you express gratitude, appreciation from to others, you will more like also like be more prone to recognize the appreciation from others that is already coming to you, because you probably are already getting some compliments and some validation on what you're doing and who you are, and when you give others your validation, first people will automatically like give it back more, and because you gave it out, even though you're not getting it back, your mind will be more apt to see what is already getting back, right? The chat is going haywire, but still. Is it clear for you, Jamie? Would you like some more, is there anything like you in specific you?
No, I got it. Yeah, I appreciate it. I totally get it. Terrence said that he wanted to speak.
I was about to say, especially like when your granddad, you said that he says that why aren't you in a big movie yet? Just when someone does that, just say, well, I will be. You know, it's psych your own self up. You know, because I've always done that too. Like there are times I always sought other people's approval, but you know, just look in the mirror and just say, I am the greatest actor that ever lived. Just kind of psych your own self up. Just positive affirmations. Just twice a day. I am the best actor that there is. Just psych your own self up. You know, and I mean, and you said something about being faster at work. Are you psyching yourself out subconsciously, or I mean, like I said ouch when a Roman said about you are attracting certain situations. Maybe it's a subconscious script that you're running. What about? I don't want to go in your personal life, but I'm talking about like what about far as relationships? Do you find yourself dating the same type of people, or you know what I'm saying? You might be running a script and you're attracting the same type of people. So I mean, and that's what I was saying about reprogramming, reboot. I mean, that's why I said use positive affirmations or change the way you think about certain situations. Cause I found myself doing the same thing. So, I mean, I don't know. You find yourself in situations. I don't know. I don't want to. Well, I don't want to put too much business out there, but but
You know, Jamie, the irony is that right now, yeah. By the way, Terrence, that's some awesome stuff about scripting and like programming, and that you probably act in a way that you get that kind of reaction from people. So subconsciously, you're like informing them that they are going to answer that to you. So that's some really deep stuff there. And that's all that also touches on the mirroring effect. But the irony of me telling you how to do that is also like I'm telling you how to do something better, right? Well, okay, but the difference is here that is that you asked for it. So yeah, like I don't So that's why I actually started. I realized that I would be doing that, so I started by affirming that you actually already are enough, that you don't need my advice, you don't need anything, you don't need your approval from your grandpa or anyone else. That's yeah. So you don't need any of this either, in a way. So.
I've got one more thing to add to that, because both Roman and Terrence like came at that from two complementary sides, which I think are awesome, and they were striking a chord with me because I was very similar to where Jamie was before, especially with like different jobs or like people saying things to me about like, oh, you have to do this first, this first. Two massive self-truths that I unveiled through like hours of like journaling and banging my head against the wall, or the realization that one, I can't control what other people do or say, I can only control myself, which led me to two, I have the complete ability to feel confident without needing like an external stimulus, like a permission slip. I don't need this person or a group of people to say, yes, you finally achieved our arbitrary checklist of awesomeness, now you can feel good about yourself. Like, and by doing that, by allowing myself, giving myself permission to feel good without needing my parents to say, yes, you know you're good enough, like you being a musician or a writer is you're good enough doing that. You don't need to do this job or be faster here or do this. Working with my strengths and giving myself permission to feel good and confident has ironically caused those people to behave differently towards me in ways that I would never have thought before, because it's almost like that they've seen that on their mind subconsciously that, maybe he isn't bothered by this, and maybe that he's going to do what he wants anyway, and he's confident and he's doing it. So we can't not be proud of him for doing, going with his passion or doing the thing that feels right for him, as opposed to almost like, because whether they're aware of it or not, they're running subconscious scripts too. They have expectations as parents, as coworkers, as friends, brothers, sisters, family. And when you kind of shake up their programming by doing what's right to you and not needing their permission anymore, that almost forces them to become conscious of, oh wow, maybe like this person was right. Maybe that they don't need to do this. They're kind of living their dream or fulfilling themselves, and that you don't need that permission slip from an external figure or something. As much as hard as it is to hear, like almost like the ouch moment ago with Roman, like it is a choice to ultimately succumb to that and think and buy into the belief that you need that person's permission before you can feel good about yourself or you can feel successful. And that to me was one of the biggest lessons and hurdles that I've crossed in the last year or so, is giving myself permission to feel successful or feel good without needing someone to tell me that I am, or like, oh, you're not fast enough or you're not good enough, you should do this, this, and this. Like Terrence said, it's like that auto-suggestion, but you can literally turn it around and say like, yeah, I know, but whatever, and just switch it real quick and not let it get to you. Or you need to line a job up there. Why would I need to line a job up there? I'm gonna go fulfill my dream now. It's all gonna fall into place. Like that confidence, that switch of like asserting yourself and your confidence is like what's gonna make those people ultimately feel differently about that. And like ever since I started doing that, people that used to give me flack about things they're like, oh, how's it going now? Like, oh, I've seen that you've got this, this, and this going. That's good for you, man. Like, good for you. It's like a complete opposite effect, as opposed to just like having that negativity coming in at you and reacting to it and like turtling and going back in your shell, versus almost like making a light humor out of it, like reaching that neutral point and like accepting it and then spinning it and be like, yeah, I'm gonna go, like when your grandfather said like, do you have a job lined up? He'd be like, yeah, as the greatest movie star of the century, like spin it, like bam, right there, like right back in his face. He's like, oh, okay, like you're lighthearted about it, you're not serious, you're not dense, like do you have a job lined up? And no, but I've got like 5 script proposals ready, and I'm gonna like go here and do this, this, and this, and like I can't wait to start, and like you're gonna see me on YouTube and and just kind of like spin it back in his face, like, you know what I mean, like in a lighthearted way. And to me, that's always worked for me very well. I found that, like whether it's with music or with writing or anything, like I said, especially with creative stuff, it's so hard for creative types to really feel like they have an advantage, because most people don't get it. It's very hard to tell people that, especially older people like grandparents and parents who are very subconsciously written in things being this way. They grew up, they worked difficult jobs, difficult labor, everything was really tough. Now we have so many advantages available to us. Like this generation really does, especially with like the internet and the way technology is connecting people. It's a whole new ball game. And so yeah, that was my 2 cents on that. I don't know what's going on over here. That's how Terrence gonna say something there. His mic's still on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, man. But yeah, does anyone have anything else to add to that? I know that some people said they had to get going soon. This has been a really good session.
Yeah, I need to get going soon as well. How many,
Get going.
like, is it an hour and a half or something now? Or
Yeah,
what is it? Or
yeah.
more?
It's been, actually about an hour and 45.
Wow, man. Okay. There's a little anecdote about relationship chemistry I wanted to share.
Do it.
Actually, something else came up as well. We forgot about that. Yeah, so I was once like pestered by a colleague of mine. I worked in a pancake restaurant, and there was this one guy who would always do nasty stuff, like things to me. Like he would put salt in my coffee, or yeah, things like that. That happens in a kitchen. This men like among each other, especially in a close quarters kitchen. So, anyways. It wasn't that bad actually, but I just always had the feeling he was after me. He was on to me, like he was always out to get me. And one day I was riding home and I was hold your horses, Terrence. So I was riding the bike to my work, and I was listening to this Eckhart Tolle tape or something, and then it dawned on me that maybe if I just chose that I would see that guy as a very kind guy instead of a very mean guy, maybe he would become that in my eyes. So I just tested that. I just tested that idea, and I just started to treat him kindly and just really engage in what he had to say, and do nice things for him, not like pleasing, but just like normal, like act kind and always willing to see the positive in what he said, like even if it was kind of negative, that he or neutral or like bossy or whatever, I would twist it the right way, like take it well, and then like within the span of a month or so, we kind of got like we didn't become like good friends right away, but like I did start seeing him in a very different light, and we did like happily drink beer together quite surprisingly after like 3 months. So yeah, I think most of the things are in your head, and like also about the criticism from your like and the concerned remarks from your grandpa, for example, they only touch you so much because there's doubt in yourself about it. Like, I mean, if they were like irrelevant to you, then you wouldn't even notice that people said that, or that you would just brush it off as like, oh well, I don't care. So I don't care what he has to say because it doesn't matter anyways. But because like when my mother bugs me about, okay, so when are you going to make money, right? Even if I already have, then it's like I'm only bothered by that to the extent that it's doubt in myself, that I am bothered by it. Like I am bothered by it because of the fact that I'm bothered by it. Like it's really weird. So that I let myself be bothered. Really, that's the key. And is basically the irritation or the that it hits home so hard when people do that is a reflection of your own doubt and about it. So yeah, there were 2 points there. So one being you decide how you want a relationship to be in a way. Like, of course, it's to an extent, but you have to see like 100%. You are 100% responsible to how you want to see the relationship, and then okay, there's the other person, of course, but like you can do a lot. And then there's the other thing is that doubt is only reflected. How do you say that? Doubt is like you only are hurt by someone else if if you let it, really. Like if it's something that genuinely is unstable within yourself. Thank you.
Roman, I was about to say, okay, you say you had a choice and you can see the situation how you choose to, but at the same time, doing that without deluding yourself about what's actually happening as well. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Not.
Oh yeah, I do.
It's not using positive thinking as blinding yourself, so to speak, but just you choosing to treat the situation in a different fashion. I like the way you put that. So.
Yeah, because you have to like overstep, like how do you see, like zoom out a little bit and see how you are reacting to what the other person is doing. It's like going a step further than deluding yourself. If you just delude yourself without awareness, you just say, okay, I like this person. This person is awesome. Then still in the back of your mind, you're gonna see like, oh, this person is so mean. That it doesn't work. You know, you gotta be aware of the process, I think. Like, also be aware of your own reaction to it.
Yeah, those are fighting words. That's a fight, though. Salty coffee, that's a fight. I mean, I get my white glove and smack somebody. Take 10 paces.
I'm very conflict. How do you say it? Evading. Like I don't like conflict. I always like to compromise. So I can be pushed quite hard without me being like really getting angry. So like I almost never get in a fight.
Yeah. I used to be that way too. Like, I avoid conflict. I don't really like to rock the boat, but I'm starting to really come out of that now. So
yeah,
I can be abrasive at times.
Something I'm always proud of.
But I mean, it takes some training to get out of not try to avoid a bit conflict avoidance. I mean avoidance. Takes some training to get out of it though. It does take some conscious. I mean, sometimes saying how you feel up front will be a lot better than keep letting certain things keep going for too long. Sometimes you can let things happen for too long, and then it's harder to deal with the situation if you just did it right then.
Oh, yeah. And that counts for a lot of things.
So I've let things happen for such a long time before that when I finally got the guts to deal with it, then I've let it get way too far to hand. But I still had to deal with it anyway. So
yeah,
that's my little 2 cents. But salty coffee ain't right.
Salty coffee.
Yeah, it was like spanking with towel stuff, you know, that like.
I hate
But that was like reciprocal, like everyone did that though to each other. Like in the salty coffee as well, it was just like a prank. Anyways, I learned something from it, and it's the lesson that I retain, not the bad feelings.
Exactly, man. All of this ties back in, by the way, everything that everyone was just saying in the closing part. It's like we all started talking about the subconscious mind. We all went off on these little tangents. We helped each other with personal issues and blind spots, and then at the end, it's like it all just came full circle again. We're just talking about like overcoming the subconscious blind spots, or stopping your autopilot and thinking differently about the guy at work that pushes your buttons, or the way your parents talk to you, or how you interpret a situation. And I think that we really struck a chord with neutralizing things and adding a positive spin. That seems to be what we get most out of this here. Roman's shaking his head right now.
Yeah, no, I thought I had something important to say, but just
too much salt in your coffee is eroding your memory.
Dude.
Roman looks so classy right now.
I know.
Like
Almost
a black
like
and white
Beatles.
European kid, like just with his like, collar popped.
Yeah. I'm
like-
actually wearing pants from America.
Pants from America.
Oh yeah.
So you guys have stuff made in America there? Nothing that we have here is made in America. It's all like...
No, like I bought it in America.
Nice.
Was not Abercrombie, it was the other one.
American Eagle?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
One of those AA brands. But yeah.
Oh yeah, there was this thing, like the abuser, like let's say that your grandpa is an abuser of you, and if like that guy at work was an abuser of me, so he's the abuser and he's manipulating the situation, and one person is getting like the, how do you say it, like the short end is pulling on the short end. Help me here. Pulling the short end. Anyway, someone's getting the short end. Anyways, okay, to get the short end of the stick. All right, so that's not a good situation, right? Because someone feels not good about it. So it's not a mutually beneficial situation. So what you do by allowing the abuser to continue is it's also negative for that person. Like you don't want to keep a heroin addict addicted to heroin just because the person is addicted, right? I mean, that's the same kind of like the same system, because you're letting it, you're continuing to let it happen, and you stepping up and facing your problems and like facing your problems and using your problems as stepping stones, as like you have an obstacle as that maybe the situation with your grandfather, and then you stepping up to face it and tackle it in a different way than you normally do, or try and do different approaches every time he brings up the subject. Also, like not only like helps you strengthen like your will and your kills doubt in yourself about the subject, because that's really what it stems from, and that's really why it's a weak spot. It also stops his abuse of you in a way. You know what I mean? So by doing that, you make it a more healthy relationship. So yeah, because I think the only thing that really is happening here is that he's just concerned about you, and through his view of the world, having a job means security. Security means good life. He just wants, he just loves you, right? I don't know that, but like that's just an idea. So so in the end, it might be sponsored by love. The thought that is like the thought that beneath it is that he wants you to be well. So if you can see that, you can also see through the criticism and accept the gift beneath it.
That is some profound stuff, man.
It wouldn't have come out if it weren't for you guys.
Awesome. I feel the same way. These sessions are like clarity, cleansing, like get-togethers. My brain gets so clear after we talk about this stuff for like an hour or two.
You guys are my whetstones. I think we're all like sharpening rods for each other.
Right. Well, awesome, guys. I'm gonna tie it up here because this has been like 2.5 hours, an hour and a half, 2.5, somewhere around there. I lost track of time, but we're going to tighten this up. I just want to say thank you once again to everyone that joined today. Thank you to Jamie, Roman, and Terrence for showing up again and being on time to get it rolling. I want to say thank you to my affiliates from the Universal Beat and ExpandedConsciousness.com for hooking it up and keeping the consciousness flowing. And I want to thank anyone that watches these videos, shares them, or comments on them. I'm going to include links to as much and as many of the resources that we discussed, if we can remember where we were. I'm going to notate everything like last week so you can get to the kernels really quick. And we will do the same thing next week, so if you want to join, get at me. And until then, stay conscious, guys. Thanks a lot.